You're genius. Hey, why you did it? Okay. Right. All right, very good. So yeah, we're going to dedicate our learning today for the wounded soldiers. There's many people wounded physically and also mentally from the war. So this is what we really need to focus on. So I really want to dedicate our learning for that. Okay, wonderful. This is going to be our second class on what really happened in the Garden of Eden, and today we're really going to get to the nitty-gritty today of what yeah, can I have one of those? Thanks. Of what the snake said to Eve and why they got into a discussion at all. So, okay, all right. Any else need to move? This one's okay. Balancing one. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay, great. Fantastic. All right, now I want to begin. I actually want to begin with something that Ilana said at the end of last week's shiur, okay? And she sort of made a comment as we got up from the table, and she said, I don't really understand why Adam and Eve needed to bring the will to receive themselves alone, the Yetzer Hara, into themselves, which we said was the purpose of the sin of Adam and Eve, and that God himself organized that it would happen, okay, because I'm trying to get rid of my Yetzer Hara. So why would I want to bring it in the first place? Okay, now this is a brilliant question. Okay, and it's actually a very good question. And in fact, I want to say that this was really my question that brought me to the work of Rabbi Ashlag. Because if you look at other religions like Buddhism and Hinduism and other isms, they all want to just focus on the good. Like they want to reduce the will to receive to the minimum. So they do meditation and they have ascetic practices and they sit in caves and have celibacy and cut themselves off to some extent from the world. And that's the way that they actually can find their way through. But the Jewish religion is different. The Jewish religion has a very different view of the Yetzer Hara. The Jewish religion says, and the Zohar says, the Yetzer Hara is the vessel with which we can receive all the goodness that God wanted to give us in creation. That the purpose of creation is to give goodness to the created beings, and the will to receive, which is the basis of the Yetzer Hara, okay, is actually the vessel with which we can receive all that goodness. The only problem is it's facing the wrong direction. Okay, we need to turn it around and get it into affinity of form with the Creator, and then God can actually give to us all the goodness that He wants to give us. It's the basic vessel. Okay.
Well, why isn't Yetzer Hara? Why isn't it Yetzer Tov to want things that are good?
Okay, so that's a very good question. The Yetzer HaTov is called the tikkun of creation. It's the actual bringing. It's the way of bringing that Yetzer Hara into affinity of form with creation, but it's not the vessel itself. The vessel itself is actually the will to receive. So, for example, Abraham is giving in his chesed, but who was the one who had the power was Yitzchak. Yitzchak is the essence of the will to receive. Yitzchak is where the blessings. He was the one who could give the blessings. Abraham couldn't give the blessings. It was Yitzchak, because Yitzchak is the essence of the vessel. He corrected it with Yakedah, but he was the essence of the vessel with which to receive all the goodness of creation. And he's called Yitzchak because he's called Yitzchak because of the end of the tikkun. And I can see a very puzzled face.
No. Yeah, I don't understand that, because Abraham was told, you will be blessed. You are a blessing.
Yes, but because he's in affinity of form with the Creator. Okay, so the Yetzer Hara, the vessel. Let me explain it. The light of creation, the goodness of creation, is only giving. The only thing we know about Atzmut, God's essence, from the Zohar, is that He has no will to receive anything at all. He doesn't need to receive anything. He is totally perfect, and all he wants to do is give. Okay, if we make that action with our hands, giving, let's do it, okay? How do you make that action with your hand? Giving, right? Outwards. And what's an action of receiving? Bringing it in, opposite. They are opposite, okay? So when the light is all giving and the vessel is all receiving, there's a potential problem. In order for the light to be able to come to the vessel, they have to be in affinity. So the problem with Adam and Eve, the way they were only formed from the aspect of the tikkun, of the framework of holiness, the framework which is in affinity of form, but they didn't have that basic vessel. It's like, let me tell you, you've got a baby, okay, and the baby's crying, all right, and it wants its food, and the mother sits there and thinks to herself, oh, I really love my baby. My baby is just such a wonderful being, and I have so much I'd love for her, and I really want to. Until you get up and nurse the baby or give the baby a bottle, that baby's not going to feel anything. Okay, so the intention on its own isn't enough. You've got to have that basic vessel first. So all of us, need our Yetzer Hara, we need our ego, we need our personality, and the human being is the one aspect of creation that actually has both frameworks within him or her, okay? Everything else, all the angels, for example, are only on the side of good or they're on the side of bad. You have animals, they're either kosher or they're treif. You can't have mixtures, you can't have half and half. The only creation of all God's creations which has both is the human being. We start off with the development of our personality and our ego, basically under the table of the Yetzer Hara, okay, from 0 to age 13 for a boy, 12 for a girl. And then that's when the Marechet HaKedusha, that's when with the beginning of Torah and Mitzvot, that's when the Marechet of Kedusha, that's when the soul begins to incarnate into the human being. Okay, so we get our basis of our will to receive for ourselves alone when we're children. The psychologists were not wrong about that. Okay, the problems are usually in childhood. Okay, and then we have the rest of our lives to grow in Torah and Mitzvot, and Torah is to teach us. Torah means teaching. What does it need to teach us? It needs to teach us how to transform our will to receive for ourselves alone, our Yetzer Hara, how to turn it around and use it only for the sake of giving. Now, we can't use it straight away. First of all, what we need to do is let it alone and concentrate on giving. That's the first thing we need to do. We just leave our will to receive for ourselves alone. It's like what Rambam said. When you've got something that you want to deal with, first of all, you go to the other extreme, you leave it alone. You don't, if, for example, a person has anger, okay? So he makes every single possible means just to leave his anger alone and just function from the side of good. Only when he's really got it under control and he's no longer connected with his anger, he can now bring it back and use it for the sake of giving. In other words, you can, for example, take that energy of anger and use it for social justice, okay? If we don't have that midah of anger, of that something's upsetting us and we see it's wrong, we don't have the capacity for social justice either, okay? So we can see that the will to receive, the basic Yetzer Hara, is a necessary component of us as whole human beings, and it has a purpose and a function. What we learned last time was that Adam and Eve were arumim, they were naked. What does that mean? They didn't have a Yetzer Hara. Therefore, they were in the Garden of Eden, which was only the framework of holiness, and that's where they were. That was the situation, but it wasn't a situation that could last. Not if Adam and Eve were going to actually fulfill the purpose for which they were created. What was the purpose for which they were created? To deal with that parts of creation which the framework of holiness cannot bring by itself into holiness. We looked at that last week. We looked at it and we said that the in the Ein Sof, you've got infinite light, okay, and an infinite vessel. Ultimately, all that vessel needs to be turned around and transformed into holiness. So the framework of holiness, which is the worlds, Adam Kadmon, Atzilut, Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, do that, okay? But it's not enough. It's called a kav, a line. What's the difference between a line and infinite? Colossal.
Boundaries.
Yeah, the line has got boundaries. It's got a up and a down, but it's also very thin, okay? And all the rest of that vessel needs to be transformed into holiness. This is God's vessel. He created it. He created an infinite vessel. So what did he do? He created the human being. And he said, if I create the human being, he's going to be made up of both frameworks. He'll be able within himself to move aspects of himself from the framework of evil, the anger, the lusts, the desires, the longing for entertainment, all the stuff that we have, okay, the cruelty, we can take the stinginess, we can take all of those, okay, and work through Torah and mitzvot to transform them and bring them into holiness. So in fact, the human being was created in order to complete creation from our side. All right? Okay? And that's a wonderful thing. Because what did the vessel of the end, what do we gain by that? We gain that instead of being passive receivers of God's goodness, we become active partners. Isn't that an amazing idea?
Big responsibility.
It's also a big responsibility. It's also not at all obvious to us as individuals how to do it. I mean, we're in the framework of evil. This world, okay, is called the framework of evil. Okay, default consciousness of this world is, how do I receive for myself alone? How do I better my self-interests? We're all brought up like that. How do I better my self-interest? What is good for me must be good. Okay, we're all brought up in that framework. Our whole economic system is based on the rich get richer. Okay, all of them. It is. It basically is. Okay, and the poor get poorer.
Socialists here, okay.
Well, okay, but that's what it's based on. That's the basic of our economic systems. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's reality.
Pull yourself by your bootstraps. Somebody who's, anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Really.
Exactly.
Poor person can, with a good idea can make a fortune.
Whatever, right? I'm not. I'm just not saying whether it's bad.
Distraction.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not saying whether it's bad or good. I'm just saying that's reality. Okay.
And the reality is we expect everyone to go by their self-interests.
That's right.
How,
That's right. And that is the reality. And then we have Torah and mitzvot, and Torah is a totally different paradigm completely. Torah and mitzvot, why do we have Torah? When Moses went up the mountain, okay, you know the Midrash, Moses went up the mountain and the angels accused. And I said, what's this human being doing up here? Yulud Isha is the Hebrew word. This man born of a woman, what's he doing up here? And God says he's come to get my Torah. You want to give it, your pearl to this mortal being? What for? And God said to Moses, answer them. And he said, do you have a Yetzer Hara? Do you have anger? Do you have lust? Do you have jealousy? No, then you don't need the Torah. We need the Torah. So the purpose of the Torah is actually to take our will to receive for ourselves alone and transform it. But before we can do any transformation, we have to have it in the first place. And this is the story of Adam and Eve, okay? So now we're going to carry on from where we were from last time. I can't remember precisely exactly where we stopped. So I'm going to go back over, maybe going back a little bit, I can't remember. I'm going over exactly where I want to begin. So let me just find the spot. Here we are. where it says Omnam tzrich lavin me'od, that's where I want to begin this time.
Can you just pull it up and point?
Let me just tell you where it is. If you pass me one of the pieces of paper, I'll show you where it is on the piece of paper. This is,
Broken up into.
it's the last paragraph of the last bit before Tet Zayin. So, Omnam.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah,
You got it?
right here. Thanks.
Oh, well done. I couldn't see it. Well done. Milana knows. Well done, Milana.
Right about the middle of the page.
Yeah.
Middle of that bar.
Here we are. Here we are. Omnim tzrich lavin me'od. Last bit. There's about 4 lines up from the bottom, 5 lines up from the bottom. Okay. Omnam tzrich lavin me'od. However, we need to understand very much. Romamut zeh ha'adam, the incredible elevation of the human being. Yitzir kapav shel kadosh baruch hu, the precious made from the palms of the hands of kadosh baruch hu. V'ishto, and his wife. Shakadosh Baruch halak la od bina yetera haimenu, who God gave even more bina, even more understanding than he gave to a man. Okay, kamam zal, as the sages said, b'havanat katuv, and understanding the scripture. V'yiven Hashem et hatzela, that God built the rib, okay, the side of man that gave forth woman, and it's a play on words that by even he built bina, he gave her bina, he gave her understanding, comprehension, an ability to understand things from within things. Okay, so how could they have fallen down and become like fools? They didn't know to be careful of the craftiness of the snake. On the other hand, this is the snake that the scripture declares that it was the most crafty of all beasts of the field, or clever of all the beasts of the field. How could it say such complete foolishness and empty words? That if they were to eat from the fruit of Eitz Hadat, how could they would be like God? And how did such foolishness find a nest in their heart? And further on it says, wasn't because they wanted to be like God that they ate from the tree of knowledge, but from a simple appetite. Simply, because the tree looks good to eat, the fruit of the tree looks good to eat. Which just seems like an animal appetite. Okay? So all this is like, what is this about? Tet Zayin. We need to understand well the 2 types of clarification that are practiced by us. Biror rishon nikra biroi tov ra, biror sheni nikra biroi emet v'sheker. I think we talked a little bit about this last time. Okay, so I'm just going to go over it quickly. The clarification of good and evil, and the second one, which is of good and evil, and the other one is true and false. Okay, so God gave to every single creature a way to discover for himself or herself what is good and what is bad. Okay, and to the animals, he gave them a natural instinct that what is good is sweet and what is bad is bitter. Okay, so an animal naturally knows what he's going to take because it feels good to him, all right, or to her. And this is the clarification which Adam and Eve had in the Garden of Eden.
But that's good and evil, or that's
Sorry?
true? That's good and evil.
No, no, that's not.
It's,
Oh, I see, good and evil. Yes, because what I see what you're saying.
it's
So
not
what?
true
Yes,
false, it's
yes, It's
Okay.
it's good. In other words, what feels sweet is good, and what feels bitter is bad. All right. Okay. All right. So he says here that in Rechov HaPalmach, this function is certainly sufficient in the inanimate, the plant, and the animal. Okay. And just using that function, they can come to their perfection. However, God planted in the human being an additional way of clarification, which is a more intellectual one, okay, which is an issue of true and false, okay? What did I mean by that? Like, for example, it's very well known that quinine, which is the medicine for malaria, is extremely, extremely bitter. What? Oh, I say it in English. Okay, say it in American. Okay, quinine. All right. It's a very, very bitter medicine. Okay. All right. So if you were going to give somebody who got malaria quinine, they don't like it. They spit it out. Okay, or they try to spit it out. But you have to tell them this is going to cure you. This is healthy for you. This is good for you. Okay. Okay. All right. And so this is healthy for you. This is good for you. Okay. In other words, in our reality, we can certainly have things which are bitter, but they're good for us. And we have the ability to override what is good is sweet and what is bad is bitter. Okay. All right. Now that functioning of true and false actually comes to us through the sin of the tree of knowledge. Okay. All right. Okay. And he says, I'll explain this to you by a parable. If the righteous were rewarded according to their good deeds, like you were going to you give money to the beggar, and instantly you feel the light of God just pouring through you. All right. How many beggars would you give to them a day? You'd be chasing after all the beggars in the world, right? To give money to them, all right? Because you'd be looking at that beautiful, beautiful light. So the tzaddikim, if we were to, if this was, what is good is sweet and what is bad is bitter. And on the contrary, if God forbid you were about to eat something treif in a restaurant or milk after meat or something, you'd straight away feel, you'd feel terrible. Okay, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't even think to do it. Okay, so naturally, we would be able to keep all the Torah mitzvot without any problem whatsoever. Because what would be good would be sweet to us, and what was difficult, or what would be bad, what would be a sin, would feel bitter to us. We wouldn't want to do it. Okay, all right. And if that was the case, then for sure, everybody would run towards the mitzvahs, and everybody would keep away from the averot without any problem whatsoever. Now, this was actually the situation of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Okay, the situation of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden was they just had to eat what was good, which was all the other trees of the garden, and they had to keep away from the bitter tree, the one which was the tree in the middle of the garden. That was all they had to do, because they were still functioning according to their clarification of what is good is sweet and what is bad is bitter. Okay? Right. So that's where we got up to last time. Ot Yud Zayin. So I just sort of went through Tet Zayin very quickly, and now we're going to Ot Yud Zayin. All right? So this we didn't do. So I'm going to do this word for word, this one. So now we can understand the craftiness or of the snake. That the sages added to inform us. That means the sitra achra, the other side, was clothed within it. And that is that his words were extremely high. That's not a contradiction in terms. Okay? The highs are the most difficult of all the wills to receive, our desires to receive for ourselves alone, is not in the physical world. It's not in physicality or in emotional or mental. It's actually the desires in spirituality. And all the, what I'm going to say, the great evil guys of the Torah, Pharaoh, Laban, Esau, okay, Bilam, okay, they were great spiritual adepts. What I want to say is like this. Everybody knows that receiving for oneself alone, like just receiving for oneself, is not in the framework of holiness. There's no light there. If the framework of, they weren't interested in that. They wanted to receive all the light, but only for the sake of giving, because they know if it's for the sake of receiving for themselves alone, they can't receive anything anyhow. So all these people are great spiritual adepts. So when he says that the snake, the origin of it all, okay, his words were very high, yes, they were, okay? And he opens his discourse. Is it true that God said you should not eat from all the trees of the garden? Perush. He starts a conversation with her. Because the woman had not been commanded from the mouth of God. God had commanded Adam when Eve was not yet created. Okay? And this is known.
Not to eat from
Not to eat from the tree of knowledge, because if you do, you will surely die. And actually, what is he asking about? He asked her about the ways of clarification, okay, which we talked about. How do we know what's good and what's bad? How do you know that the tree of knowledge is forbidden? Maybe all the trees of the garden, the fruit of all the trees of the garden are forbidden. Okay. The woman said no. From the trees of all the garden, we can eat. Find the actual verse. Yes. Verse 3. And from the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, and God said, you shall not eat from it, and you shall not touch it, lest you will die.
But God didn't say that.
What?
But God did not say that.
I know God did say it.
Huh?
Yes.
He said that.
Yes, that's right.
But God did not say that.
I know that God didn't say it. We're going to deal with that right now.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? All right. So, okay. God said, Lo tuchlu mimenu v'lo tigu bo pen tumutun. And God said, it's what she said. V'esh kan shtei diukim gdolim. And there are here two very accurate things to look at. Aleph.
Can they mute
themselves?
themselves?
I have to sort of. Somebody asked me. I have no idea what they said though. I'm so sorry.
Put
it in the chat.
They sneezed.
It's what?
They just sneezed.
They sneezed? Oh, my hearing aids didn't. Okay. All right. Thanks. Right. So there's two very important accuracies here. Number one is about touching. Lo ne'esra me'olam. It was never forbidden. So why did she say it was? Is she already casting doubt on God's word? She hasn't even eaten from the tree yet. Okay. When God said, you will surely die, V'isha omeret pen tamutun, and the woman says, lest you die. V'itachen shelo yamina chas v'shalom b'dvar Hashem od miterem ha'chet. Is it possible she didn't believe in what God said even before the sin? Omnam isha antalo al pi shelato shel hanachash. But in fact, the woman is answering him according to the answer. Oh, I see. We've got a bit bottled up, have we? That's called the answer of the snake. Shall we try? Wait a minute while we get it back again.
It's here.
It's
You
here.
just don't see it.
Oh, I see. All right. According to the answer, question of the snake.
Okay.
And so she knew Mash Asa Hashem. How did she know for herself? I think we're stuck here. Me too.
It's beyond my technical abilities. It's on. It's on. It just got lost. It's on.
Okay.
It's on.
All right. So where were
The
we?
screen appears. Just one button. Which screen was
I think it's that one, maybe.
Oops.
Okay.
She answered according to the question.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, let's close participant. What? How do you close the participant?
All right. Is it we okay there? Right. Excellent.
Yeah, you should.
All right. Okay. So the woman answers the question according to the question of the snake. And what she says is that has forbidden all the trees of the garden. Okay. I apologize. What God forbade? And she answers him according to her knowledge. Regarding what God forbade, because all the trees of the garden are sweet and pleasant to eat. All right, that's what she knows from her own experience as well, not just what God commanded, but she knows it from her own experience. Which is not the case regarding the tree in the middle of the garden. She'd already been close to it, close enough to touch, and she could feel within it the bitterness there. And she said, whoa, you can't even go close to this thing. Pentamotun, you might even die just by touching it. So what she's actually answering the snake is not from what God said, but what she herself experienced.
From her own
Experience, from her own bina.
that God gave her.
Yes, from the bina God gave her, that she herself is clarifying for herself what trees are good, because she can feel them to be sweet and good, and what tree is bad because she can feel it to be bad and bitter. Okay? So she knows from her own experience that she can wander around the garden and she can eat from all the trees of the garden. They're going to be good for her, and they're going to be great and beautiful. And God created them to be good and beautiful. But from that tree in the middle of the garden, don't even get close to it, because she could already feel, even by getting close enough, that it was bitter and bad. All right? All right?
I said, so why didn't she know?
Well, she got close to it, and she said, no, pentamutun, you might die. All right? Okay, good question. Why did she do it? Well, let's move. Well, we'll keep moving on, and then we'll get there. So she proved for herself that from her own clarification, there's a danger of death, even if you just touch the thing. And therefore she added to the commandment of what was forbidden on what she'd heard from her husband. Because there's nobody as wise as somebody who's actually experienced it for themselves. Pentamutun, lest you die, relates to touching, coming close enough even to touch. And this answer should have been sufficient completely. Because nobody can deny what somebody else feels or tastes is what they feel or taste. Okay? But the snake did deny her. You're not going to die. Because on the day, because God knows that on the day when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you shall be and you shall be like God, knowing good and evil. Okay? And we need to ponder the question. What's the issue of opening our eyes here? However, this is an absolutely new and exalted thing that that the snake is telling Eve. All right? And this is the true part. Rabbi Ashlag tells further on that in every lie, if you're going to tell a lie, you've got to put a kernel of truth, because people are not stupid. All right? And if it's total lies, they just laugh. Okay? But if you want people to believe something, especially somebody as highly intelligent as Chava, you've got to put a lot of truth in there. So he told a lie. What was the lie? Lo mot tamutun, you will not die. That was the lie. But he also told a lot of truth. And this was the actual truth that he told her. Hodia ota, he told her, shochich lehem, he proved to them, shetipshut hi lachshov shebara Hashem davar ra mezik ba'olamo. That it's a crazy thing to think that God created anything which is ultimately bad or evil or damaging in his world. He is good and does good. How can he create anything which is ultimately evil? Okay. And so for sure, with respect to God, from God's perspective, the tree of knowledge, the Yetzer Hara, the evil, cannot be evil. Okay? But the bitterness that you taste in it, even by getting close to touch, it's only from your perspective, from your side. That the purpose of this eating is to test you and get you up to a higher level. And you need an extra holiness. Beit HaMaseh, at the time of the action, that all your intention when you eat from the tree of knowledge should be to give pleasure to the Creator. To fulfill the purpose for which you were created. So what is the snake telling her, according to Rabbi Ashlag? The snake is telling her, first of all, that there's no such thing as ultimate evil, because everything comes from God, and therefore the fact that you see it as evil is from your side. From God's perspective, hakol tov. Okay, we'll get to your question in a minute. I want to just finish my thought. Okay, everything will be good, and that your purpose as created human beings is to recognize the evil in the tree and to transform it only for the sake of giving. Right or wrong?
Sounds good.
Right. Okay? The snake is telling her something right. This is something that our purpose of the Yetzer Hara is to transform it to good. Okay? Right or wrong? It's right. Okay? Yeah, you wanted to ask something?
Nevertheless, even so, but there is in nature things that touch them. You will die. You know, there are poisonous snakes, frogs, fish that they are. Whether you say that evil or good, touch them, you'll die. Which is the same.
Yeah. So there's difference between God's perspective and our perspective.
From our perspective, we'll die.
Yes, dying is not okay. Dying is not the end of life, okay? Right, the souls are eternal, okay? And so that's part of the process, okay? So what we see as good and damaging is not the same as what God sees as good and damaging. As Isaiah says, our thoughts are not his thoughts, our deeds are not his deeds, or his deeds are the other way around, okay? All right. So therefore, what you need to do, you need extra holiness, okay? Beit HaMaseh, or at the time when you do the action of eating from the tree of knowledge, shekol kavanatachem, which are all your intention, to give goodness to all created beings, l'kayem kavanah, to fulfill the intention, shalem nivretem, for which we were created. True. It only appears to you as evil and damaging, so that you will understand how much holiness you really need, how much effort you really need that is required of you to transform all that part of the vessel, the original vessel of creation, into holiness. However, on the day that you eat from it, if you do such an action in holiness and purity, it is as clear as day, as you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Yes, that's also true. We have tremendous tzaddikim in our world who have totally transformed their will to receive for themselves alone to the sake of giving, like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, like Rabbi Akiva, like the Baal Shem Tov. I also think like Rabbi Ashlag, tremendous tzaddikim who reached these heights and did transform all their will to receive for themselves alone to the side of goodness, and they become partners in creation. Okay, the Rav goes there and Hashem Mekayim. The sage decrees and God fulfills it. They become absolutely partners in creation, that they are absolutely able to work together with God. It's phenomenal. Okay? Kloma, that is to say, as from God's perspective, it is for sure sweet and in affinity of form completely, because everything that God brings forth is good, whether we see it or not. And likewise, you will transform all that vessel, because the Sitra Achra, the other side, was clothed in the tree, in the snake and in the tree, okay? And you'll bring that all into affinity of form, transforming the will to receive only for the sake of giving, and it will become the Matokula Eden, and it will become sweet and beautiful. But there's still a place where you could worry, is the snake telling me anything true? Is it true what the snake is saying? Because God had told them this from God. If he wanted them to do this, why didn't he tell it to himself? Okay? Hava was not stupid, I have to tell you. This is amazing, amazing woman there. Okay? Therefore, the snake, first of all, says, because God knows on the day when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened. That is to say, from God's side, it is superfluous to tell you this, because he knows that once you put your attention on this, to eat on the side of holiness, your eyes will be opened on your own. To understand the greatness of exaltation in it. Because you will feel the sweetness and pleasure in it to amazing degree. So he doesn't need to tell you. This is why he's stamped within you a power of clarification. So you will know your purpose, your usefulness, your abilities, yourself. So I want to go back to Judy's question. Judy asked a beautiful question earlier, and she said, what advantage do we have with the will to receive the framework of evil over the framework of good? Why can't we just function with the framework of good? And I tried to answer it with the comparison between Adam and Yitzhak, but it's really much more basic than that. When God creates the world, the purpose of creation was to give goodness to all created beings. And therefore, in order to give goodness, he has to create a vessel to receive that goodness. Okay? You can't give something to somebody if you have no desire to receive it. The vessel is the desire. We've got to have the desire to receive all God's goodness. Okay? That's the basis of creation. Now, the framework of goodness, the framework of holiness, is the desire to come into affinity of form with the Creator. And that's a wonderful, fantastic desire. But it's not the desire to receive all that goodness. And therefore, the light that comes from the will to receive for the sake of giving is much greater than the light which comes from the will to give for the sake of giving. It's just totally different category. For example, you give money to the beggar and you do it unconditionally because you really want to give to the beggar. You get pleasure from it. Okay, but when a person receives the light of Torah only for the sake of giving, he's receiving the order Chochmah, he's receiving the great light of Chochmah he's receiving the actual light of God, Galut Hashem, the revelation of the light of God within himself, only for the sake of giving pleasure to the Creator. The pleasure there is immensely greater. So the amount of pleasure, potential pleasure, in the framework of evil which is transformed is immensely greater than the amount of pleasure in the framework of Kedusha. Okay, the framework of Kedusha is a great framework, but it's only the line, the small line compared with that infinite amount of vessel. Whereas the framework of evil transformed is actually the Gemara Tikkun. It's the end of the Tikkun. When we actually transform all our vessel of receiving for the sake of giving, that's the end of the Tikkun for individuals and for the whole of the world together. And the pleasure there is immensely greater. Okay? So, okay. Miyad Kativ, once the snake has told her that, okay, one is written straight away subsequently, V'tera isha ki tova etz lama'achal, v'ikhi tava ileinaim. She said that the woman saw that the tree was good for fruit, was beautiful, and it was a delight to the eyes. Okay, and in fact, it was like the most beautiful tree now in the whole of the garden. Okay, what does that say? Pirush. She lost some chatzmal dvarav. She didn't just rely on the words of the snake. Shalcha birara midata utvunata. She went and she clarified it with her own opinion, with her own da'at, with her own experience. Yeah, with her own experience, and with her own tvuna, with her own hitbonanut, with her own bina, with her own understanding. Okay, what did God say? What did the snake say? What do I feel? What do I feel about the tree? What if I really understand that there's no such thing that God could possibly create anything which was in itself damaging or evil in his world? What if I really, really believe that? What if I was only wanting to correct that tree? If I see it as bad, how if I was to correct it only for the sake of giving? What would happen? And so she does that. And she feels the most incredible delight and wonder that she's ever felt in her entire life, far greater than any of the other trees in the garden. Okay, and that's just by thinking about it, never mind doing it. Okay,
Her entire life of several hours.
Huh?
Yes.
Her entire life of several hours.
Okay, Beseda, but for Eve that was important. וקדישה את עצמה, וקדישת עצמה בקדושה יתרה, לעשות נחת רוח לשם יתברך. She sanctified herself with incredible sanctity, okay? To only do anything, everything, only for the sake of giving pleasure to the Creator. כדי להשלים הכוונה הניצה ממנה, to fulfill the purpose for which he wants her to fulfill. ולא כלל להנאת עצמה. She wasn't at all interested in her own pleasure. She only wants to do benefit to the Creator. שאז נפקחו עיניה. And then her eyes really were opened. And this is only just by thinking about it. בדברי הנחש. Like the word כדברי הנחש, like the words of the snake. ותראה האישה כי טוב העץ המאכל. And she saw that the tree really was good to eat. Now remember, she's working from what is sweet is good, okay? So she says, wow, it really is good. It really is sweet.
Even though she sensed the bitterness before.
She sensed, yes, she felt it was so bitter that she couldn't get anywhere near it.
Right.
Now she felt the exact opposite. So she tests out, is the information that the snake gave her true or false? And a large part of what the snake said was true. So she tests that out. She says, wow, it's true. Okay? It's amazing to contemplate. Before she's even got anywhere near it. She felt in it tremendous sweetness and tremendous desire because it's good. All right? She felt just by looking at it alone that such delight had not even happened to her with all the other trees of the garden, because when we transform the will to receive for the sake of giving, it's a much greater pleasure and light that comes in than even in the framework of goodness.
That's why she wanted to give it to Adam for the sake of giving.
Absolutely. Okay? She clarifies for herself that the tree is so pleasant to contemplate. Even just by thinking I can do pleasure to the Creator, I can fulfill the purpose for which He created me, I can do Him some good because I can transform this evil into which is ultimately not evil. I can transform it so that it's also only good, the absolute good. More than other trees of the garden. And she understands that for this action of eating, they were created, which is actually true. And we'll talk about how that's true in the next shiur, the shiur after. And this is really all their purpose. As the snake revealed to her. So once she's clarified these real deep clarifications, okay, which are not easy to get to, I'm sure. So she took from the fruit and she ate it with the ultimate of holiness and with the ultimate of good intentions to give goodness to the Creator, in the ultimate of union with the Creator. And she gave it to her husband with her, and he ate. And the scripture is specific with the word ima, together with her in the purest of intentions, which is only to give goodness to the created being, but not for their own self-needs at all. And this is what the scripture says, that she gave it to her husband with her, with her in holiness. So let's just stop here and take a breath. Okay? So there was Eve, the mother of all humankind, and she acts with tremendous clarity, with tremendous understanding that why God created the human being was to transform everything that appears to us as evil, which is what we call, what you said was the framework of evil. You pointed out it's a lot that appears to us as evil, okay? And to realize that we need to bring it into affinity of form with the Creator, okay? And she did this tremendous, what's called a yichud, union, bringing the aspect of evil into goodness, is basically saying everything that you give God, everything, ein od milvado, there's none other than God, and all that he does is good, okay? And that everything that comes from him is ultimately good, okay? And we are given the choice to transform all the vessel to bring it into holiness. And Eve understood this, and she did an amazing union in the Garden of Eden.
Still ultimately disobeyed Hashem's commandment.
We're going to talk about all of that, okay? I know that there are questions. I know that it doesn't, we haven't finished okay, only halfway through.
But
Okay,
you
we've
did
still
say
got a lot more.
earlier that God gave it to Adam and she wasn't like created yet. So it wasn't a direct commandment to her.
That's
You said that at the beginning of this class.
I did, right.
Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, yes. I mean, I know that there's more to talk about. Okay, we all know that there were consequences, unintended consequences. Okay, exactly. God intended them, but Eve didn't. All right, she acted from purity. She is the mother of mankind, and we're going to find out exactly how. And we're also going to look at what the consequences were. All right, but if we were like a fly in the wall at this moment in the Garden of Eden, we would say that Eve did an amazing work to take all of that, the framework of evil, which is all represented in that tree, and to convert the whole thing for the sake of giving. She basically, if it had succeeded, she would have finished all the tikkun. That's it. All right, she would have finished all the tikkun. It would have been the Gemara tikkun, and all the tikkun would be finished. That was her intention. All right, that was her intention. So I think this is a moment for me to celebrate Eve, to celebrate womankind. She is the mother of all women, all humankind, and I think it's a moment to just tell the story of Eve, Adam and Eve, in a much more appreciative way of Eve than has been known for thousands of years. I think what Rabbi Ashlag has given to us in this introduction is a totally new way to look at Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden and to understand ourselves better as a consequence. And I think especially as women, because women, this story has been told against women from time immemorial. Okay, and I think it's very beautiful to take a moment, okay, where we can just first of all just appreciate the Bina Yetera of Eve, okay, the beautiful understanding that Eve really did have of understanding what was true about what the snake said, and to clarify it for herself, dedicate herself with the utmost of sanctity, that only for the sake of God she wants to eat from the tree of knowledge, or she contemplates the tree of knowledge, and she dedicates herself with so much sanctity that she sees how it changes from bitter into the most beautiful, beautiful sweetness. Okay? Beautiful. Baruch Hashem. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we'll carry on next week with all your questions, because they're good questions. Okay, yeah.
A list I want to.
We've got a list of Marlon. Great.
But one basic thing in this very beginning, but if God can do anything, why didn't he create humans with this already in them, this capacity in them?
That's like my
There's-
great man already with the Priscilla.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
And also it seems like there's certain behaviors that are not innately good or bad, like initiative. So was it that Hashem needed us to take initiative in order to complete the somehow?
It's not.
Like, is that why he couldn't create us already with this capacity instilled in us?
Okay, these are excellent questions, Ilana. I really want to say to you, these are excellent, excellent questions. The question is, do I want to really go into them now because they're going to take a bit of an answer? I think, yeah, these are brilliant questions. Let me just I'd like to write them down. Okay, so let me just write them down. One was, why didn't God create us with, yeah, thank you.
With that capacity for.
Wait a minute, I won't write it on that. I'll write it in my notebook. Thanks. Right.
Punishment, right?
Wait, right. Okay, right. Why didn't God create us
Already with this capacity.
ready with framework of evil?
So I take the rubbish out.
Yeah, soon.
Question. Right, you said punishment.
Yeah, like why would the punishment?
Why was it punishment? Right. Question of punishment. Question of punishment. Anybody else? You said something
And the
else.
second question was about the qualities that are not inherently good or evil, but are just like initiative.
Right.
Did it require Eve taking the initiative
Yeah.
in order to, like,
Right.
sort of what you were saying about
Yeah.
step food? Part of the equation. And another is that the state is described as the advocate of Amon.
Yeah, I'm on.
But that's also how Adam and Eve were described.
I know.
It's also.
Yeah.
So that's the question.
I don't know the answer to that question. I can tell you that right now. That's the answer. I really don't know. The rest we'll discuss. Okay, I fancy the answer to that.
Before Eve is today, over there.
They were separate.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
I wonder if somebody borrowed it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of stuck. How do I switch this off? Oh, I see.
Files.